Hello everybody, I am Ace Cooper and today I'm back with a brand new video. Today we are doing a Doctor Who review, but not just any Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who. Starting a brand new series on this channel, hopefully, where we review classic Who. I haven't seen many, I've seen a few here and there, but my intention as of this year and last year is, when I get time, to go through classic Doctor Who stories, watch them and review them for your lovely viewing pleasure. And today we are doing that with a classic episode, a fan favourite if you will, Genesis of the Daleks, an iconic episode, and I'm gonna say the word again, I don't care, it is iconic. Tom Baker's era as the Doctor is, you know, one of the more ones that kind of sticks out in history for Doctor Who, especially in terms of pop culture and fans and all that sort of thing. So I was very, very interested going into this. This is my first Tom Baker story that I've watched. I thought I'd kick it off with a good one. So it's fair to say I was very, very excited going into this. Not just hearing about the story itself, but also Tom Baker as a Doctor. Yeah, I was very, very excited. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to talk about the TARDIS team very quickly, then we're going to talk about part 1 of the story, then part 2, and then break down all the characters with an overview, overall score at the end. So on the TARDIS team, we have the 4th Doctor, Sarah Jane and Harry. The 4th Doctor, obviously this is my first 4th Doctor story, so I didn't know what he was going to be like, but I heard some very good things. Sarah Jane Smith, of course, in New Who, has been a very prominent feature during David Tennant's era before she sadly passed away in the early 2010s. It was great to kind of see something new from this character that I'd not seen before, and I was really excited going into it because I wanted to see what she was like as a young person as well, and you know, with it being the same actress, you're going to get that, and I was genuinely excited to see her on screen as actually one of my all-time favourite companions. You know, that was kind of what dragged me into this episode as well, as a few other things as well. Harry, not seen much of, not seen pretty much anything of, but he reminds me very much of another Doctor Who companion, which I will talk about towards the end when we break down the individual characters. But yeah, really, really do like it. So this team, for me, worked quite well. Anyway, let's talk about part 1 of Genesis of the Daleks. So, part 1 of Genesis of the Daleks, I like to call the setup. I feel like part 1's aim and intention is to set up the rest of the story. Part 2 is where most of the main things happen. Part 1 is setting up that and making the audience understand everything that's going on, so this battle isn't just a pointless, you know, loss of life. You're actually seeing and understanding what these cultures are before we actually get into that. But yeah, so this is kind of a sort of basic premise of it, that the Time Lords are trying to recruit the Doctor to stop the Daleks from ever existing by destroying them when they have only just been created or before they've been created. The Doctor's sent back to Skaro, and he cannot get back to his TARDIS until he's destroyed the Daleks. Sarah and Harry also get teleported onto this planet to help the Doctor in his sort of quest, if you will. What I really loved about this is the depth of the war. It wasn't just a pointless war with different sides with stupid names. Yes, there were a few stupid names, the Mutos, the Carleds and the Thals, but I was very, very interested to see what side they came from, and straight away you get a feeling that the Carleds are very much just a kind of a commentary for Nazis. I'm not trying to push that whole, you know, the political thing, but it just goes to show that it has been a prevalent part of Doctor Who for many, many years, and there's no exception here. I actually quite enjoyed this connotation because I feel like it was appropriate. You know, the Daleks were, you know, kind of a concept from the Nazis anyway, back when they were originally created. And because this story was written by Terry Nation, that only made sense that he brought that connotation back. Yeah, I quite liked that. There were a bit, you know, a few strong bits. Obviously, the fact that the Mutos were used as a sort of derogatory term and kicked out of the dome and sent into sort of the wilderness to be kind of killed and whatever. And I like the idea that, similar to the Nazis, they kick out anyone from their society who isn't perfect and pure. Anyone who is, like, I mean, even the Muto that we do see Sarah Jane hanging around with in the first part of this story is just a normal bloke. Like, there's no major deformity or anything. He's wearing a few rags, but he just looks like a normal bloke. And that's the thing. It's like, it's a really clever satirical play on what happened in World War II and the Holocaust. I think it's a very clever commentary of that without dwelling into it too much, because it takes that concept and puts it before you so the audience can go, oh, I recognise this, yeah. So now we're seeing a different planet with the same regime, with different events, you know, sort of playing out. And I think that was very much appreciated by me, who obviously as a history student could appreciate that. A history student at GCSE, by the way, don't want to get that one wrong. I didn't take it for A level. But overall, I kind of love the characters and how they were put forward. You know, they weren't just two-dimensional. they very much had their own flaws, and I love the way that when the Doctor and Harry got captured by the Carleds and sort of brought in and interviewed and all that sort of thing, the Doctor instantly outsmarts that Carled general. Instantly. You know, grabs his gun, everything. It was very, very well performed by Tom Baker. I really, really loved that scene. It was brilliant. I love the fact that the companions are split up. So Sarah Jane got taken in with the Mutos and then eventually the Thals to help them build their rocket. Whereas the Fourth Doctor and Harry got in with the Carleds. Similar to me, which it reminded me very much of the Doctor's daughter, where there's two companions, one Doctor, and one of the companions is at one side of the army and trapped over there, and the Doctor and the other companion are at the other side of the army, and they're both trying to get them to stop fighting each other, or, you know, something along those lines. I love the introduction of Davros, a very, very chilling scene, watching Sarah Jane look behind a rock and seeing this old man in this Dalek sort of base, testing this Dalek. Obviously that the audiences at the time would have recognised from the eras before, but seeing the first Dalek, the first ever one in canonical Doctor Who, round the corner and shoot targets, and it's just chilling, and I really, really love that. To me, I thought an interesting question is, so it's kind of been confirmed that the Dalek casing on the bottom of Davros actually came before the Daleks. So that's interesting. I didn't quite realise that at the time, but that's quite an interesting concept, really, isn't it? He didn't use Dalek sort of materials to, you know, sort of fix himself. He instead made the Dalek materials kind of out of, you know, based off his own wheelchair design, really. So I quite like that. But yeah, overall, the first half of the story was pretty good, pretty entertaining, very much, just very enjoyable. I think if I had to give a negative, I would have to say that it is slightly dull at times, and I'm kind of waiting for something big to happen. I had to get through these to get to the stuff I really, really enjoyed in part 2, which is a bit of a shame, because I should be able to enjoy the whole story. But, you know, nevertheless, I did enjoy the full story, but I'm just saying that I think the first half is a little bit more dull and sort of time consuming than the second half. The second half I just flew through because I was enjoying it so much, whereas the first half I was like, oh, I'm kind of watching this because I'm enjoying it, but also that I know what's coming. Anyway, talking about part 2, All Out War, that's what I'm calling it. The Thals destroy the Carled Dome and wipe out most of their people, and Davros uses this as an excuse to invade the Thals and murder them with the Daleks. Davros is very, very prevalent in this last half. I will talk about him more as a character in a minute, but I really, really do enjoy his performance and his plan as a supervillain. Supervillain, that makes him sound like the Joker, but I know what I mean, like, a strong Doctor Who villain that's very, very famous anyway. You know, I'd seen him in New Who, I'd seen that, but this is by far the best Davros story that I've seen so far. I was thoroughly impressed with it, but seeing the manipulation, you know, so the Doctor convinced the Carleds to try and stop Davros' operations to stop the Daleks from being created. Davros knew this, and then went to go and help the Thals destroy his own people. So that happened, the Thals destroyed the Carleds, so Davros' lab didn't get shut down, and then Davros can test the Daleks by wiping out the Thals. And it's such a clever concept that, when you think about it, you're like, yeah, that man really is a genius, Jesus, it was really well done. But yeah, I think something I have to compliment the Daleks. They went from sort of remote control, very basic, at the beginning of this story, to full Daleks by the end of it. And that's no exception. When they invade the Thal Citadel dome thing, whatever you want to call it, what I loved about it is it wasn't flying Daleks going through, blowing stuff up like a big spectacle like New Who is. It was a few Daleks slowly moving down a corridor, killing everything in sight. That, for me, surprisingly, was more intimidating. I felt more of a chill when we finally got to see the Daleks as we know them. And they're not flying about, they're not blowing stuff up. They are slow, they are steady, and they are terrifying, and I absolutely love that about this sort of interpretation of them anyway. Davros is sort of found out in the sort of rebellion in the rest of the Carled people to try and wipe him out, you know, with the scientists included and all that sort of stuff. Davros tries to use a bargaining chip and tries to do pretty much everything, and he does. He mostly succeeds. He kills pretty much all of the Carled scientists before the Daleks end up killing him, and I think that's a great way of ending it. I think if Davros had never appeared again, I would have really, really loved this story, and I think that probably would have enhanced it. But I think the ending for me, I think knowing that Davros comes back, I'm interested to see how he does come back, so I'll have to watch the next story soon. But, you know, I think killing him off was such a powerful move, because it's like, the Daleks aren't controlled by anyone. The Daleks don't have a leader. The Daleks are the Daleks. They are their own leaders. They are their own soldiers, and anything that isn't pure Dalek is exterminated including Davros's sort of, I can't remember what his name is, but his right-hand man, that bloke who looks like Himmler. And then they kill Davros. Davros is angry. He's like, I created you, you obey me. And the Daleks just don't accept that, and they wipe him out straight away because he's not pure Dalek. Such a Dalek concept that I absolutely adore. I love it. I honestly love it. And you can kind of see why Davros is treated that way, you know, sort of later on, like Stolen Earth, where he's just kind of locked in the basement. He's not respected as much as he wants to be, and as much as he thinks he is. And I really, really love that. Even still here, it's incredible. The iconic scene of the Fourth Doctor deciding not to wipe history by destroying all the Daleks is such an important scene, and a very, very well acted scene by Tom Baker. Overall, a really, really impressive second half to the story, and I've got to be honest, absolutely no negatives. I could watch this on repeat. It was brilliant. It was out there, it was Daleks, it was Davros, it was the Doctor, and I just loved it. A lot of people complain about Series 11, the fact that the TARDIS doesn't, you know, the TARDIS interior doesn't appear in any episodes. And now I actually see why. I mean, it's like classic Who. Like, this doesn't even have the TARDIS box in it. Yet, it's one of the most iconic stories. Like, they don't even need the TARDIS. And they barely even use the Sonic. You know, they don't need the Sonic, they don't need the TARDIS. It's just a pure, blessed Doctor Who story that just works because it's good, not because there's some sort of convenient trap. If anything, the Doctor doesn't save the day here. You know, hundreds of people die in this, including Davros. Yet the Doctor just manages to get away, and that's the aim of this. He doesn't even wipe out the Daleks. And I think that's an incredible, incredible concept, and I really, really am happy with the way this was put forward. Let's talk about characters. Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor. I can see why people love him. Let's just say that. I'm very, very excited to watch more of his stories. His performance towards the beginning of the story, where he's sort of making a fool of the scientists and the generals, is very much how I remember people talking about Tom Baker, and how people talk about Tom Baker in general when comparing his Doctor. He's a very comedic, but a very, very clever and very witty Doctor, and I really, really like that element of him. But I also love the fact that what I didn't expect was how serious he became towards the latter half of the story, which is now why I'm more excited to jump onto his era and watch some more of his stories, because his dark performances are probably equally as good, you know? And the scene between him and Davros as well, the multiple scenes between him and Davros are just incredible. When he holds Davros at gunpoint, just everything about these scenes are so, so good. And really incredibly well done, and I think Tom Baker is definitely a part to play on that. Sarah Jane Smith, slightly screamy a bit every now and then, and that got a little bit irritating, but on the whole, a very independent and strong female character that doesn't overshadow the Doctor. The way I like to think of, you know, Sarah Jane is like Clara, but done right. You know, she's strong, she's independent, she is her own person, but she's not the Doctor. She's still the companion, and she's brilliant in her own way. And now I can see why she's a fan favourite. Now I can see why Russell T Davies brought her back, opposed to any other sort of actress or actor who played a companion in classic Who. Sarah Jane is iconic in her own right, as a strong, you know, female character, but also kind of just a very good companion, you know, asking the questions, you know, wondering what's happening, not knowing what's happening, and questioning the Doctor occasionally, but not overshadowing him, you know, not becoming the Doctor. You know, you don't have to. The Doctor can be the Doctor, you can be the companion, but you can still be strong and independent, and I think that's what Sarah Jane manages to do perfectly. Harry, I thought was good. We saw more of him than Sarah Jane because he was obviously with the Fourth Doctor, but saying that, he didn't have too much to do. He wasn't, like, sort of silent most of the time. He served the purpose and he filled the gap. I couldn't imagine it working without him there, because it would just, you know, you need someone for the Fourth Doctor to bounce off. But I feel like I want to see more of Harry, which is a good thing, but I want to watch more stories to see, you know, if I can get more out of that character, because I do want to see more. From the way he spoke and the way he addressed people reminded me very much of Ian from the First Doctor era. When I was looking at that, I was thinking, yeah, the way he kind of spoke to people is very similar to Ian in, like, Dalek Invasion or An Unearthly Child, that sort of thing, you know, the ones I've actually watched. Davros as a villain. Now I've got to say he's definitely one of my favourite villains after I've seen this story. He's up there. Definitely, absolutely, without a doubt. I absolutely love him as a character. I'm hoping to see more of him in Classic Who. I don't suppose it'll get better than this, but what I can say and what I can compliment is the fact that after I watched this story, I went and watched Magician's Apprentice and Witch's Familiar, and I went to watch Stolen Earth and Journey's End, and I can say for a fact that I thoroughly enjoyed his performance in those episodes more. I know it's not the same actor, but what I mean is Julian Bleach did an amazing job at portraying that character in later episodes, and I always loved Davros in New Who, but now I understand the story behind him. I think that's definitely added more to the character, as he would, because this is Davros' origin story as well, and I really, really like that. And I think, again, to me, I'm very, very happy coming out of this episode, and I think that's not what you can say about most Who episodes. Story, even, I keep saying episodes, I'm so used to New Who. But coming out of this story, I was happy, I was excited for more classic Who, and I was overwhelmed at how good it was. I was really, really pleased with it. It's not without its minor flaws of a little bit bored here and there in the first half, but after that, it just got better and better and better and better until the point where it's just absolutely incredible. So for that reason alone, a 10 out of 10. Why not? I really, really love this story. It's definitely up there. It's probably the best Doctor Who story I've seen, beside a few others, you know, in New Who, that I've obviously grown up with and loved. But this, as a classic Doctor Who story, as someone who is a very big fan of cinematography and special effects, I wasn't expecting to love this as much as I did, you know, due to its sort of dated aspects. But overall, it is timeless. It is a great episode. It's a great story. It's thoroughly enjoyable. If you haven't seen Genesis of the Daleks, get it, watch it. What are you doing? It's brilliant. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. If you have any more Doctor Who classic suggestions, please do leave them in the comments. I'd love to see what you have to say. I've got a few ones planned as well, and I'll probably be asking you which one you want me to do next in the community tab, so make sure you check on there as well. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel with notifications on for all the latest Series 12 news and updates, as well as classic Doctor Who reviews, modern Doctor Who reviews, and all sorts of lists and other sorts of opinions which are quite fun. Anyway, that's pretty much that. Like the video if you enjoyed. Check out the Patreon page if you want to support the channel. Have a lovely day. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.